Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Technical Steering Committee from the Linux Foundation Energy Project EVerest. Shortly have to show this slide. So this is open for everyone. We are discussing what's new, what's next, what we're currently doing with our community members here. And we typically start that with, for those who are new here, a quick introduction into what's EVerest. And afterwards, we go with what's new. That will be today presented by Pete, and then discuss quickly the outlook. So what's EVerest? So what are we? Why are we here? So we are part of the Linux Foundation Energy ecosystem with a lot of projects driving the deep decarbonization of the energy industry. We are the puzzle piece in this big picture connecting cars and the energy grid. So basically, a software connecting chargers, well, basically a firmware for chargers. We're doing this because there are so many industry members from all over the world trying to build a system for managing energies and cars and handing over that electricity. And there's so many standards. The industry is totally fragmented. There are so many players. Everyone tries to get it running, but there are inconsistencies. In the end, you have pure customer experience, and since everyone is doing the same coding, huge inefficiencies. So we want to leverage that by open source, by creating one open source firmware for all kinds of charge points, from AC to DC, from home charging to highway charging, connecting the cars, power electronics, the local solar generation, the power grid, humans via apps or display, and all kinds of clouds with each other. Everything is on GitHub. You can check that out. And yeah, so we have different protocols for these different directions we're implementing, and there are way more to come, and we're happy to add more if you have any suggestion. And yes, there are many protocols, and we don't want to add a new standard. We just want to implement the current existing standards well, because just more standards is not solving the problem, as this illustration shows. So we want to make EVerest the standard implementation for all of this. And if you want to have a charger where you can try out the firmware, besides running it in Docker containers or on your machine, you can also contact Pionix for getting development kit. We're also maybe sponsoring that if you have an interesting project. And it's all about enabling you making more cool code. So what's new to this project? And let me hand over to Pete.
Thank you. Yeah, what's new? First, last week was the Embedded Linux conference, and we've been there. We had a talk there and presented EVerest to the open source community. It was really nice to get some positive feedback for the project, and also to get in touch with the open source community and talk to them about their projects and their approaches and stuff like that. We have also met other projects from the Linux Foundation Energy, people from Alianda and from RT, from like grid operators. And there is also a recording of our talk on YouTube coming up, probably in about a month from now. Right now, it's still behind the paywall, but they will publish all the talks on YouTube after that 1 month. Right. What's new considering like the EVerest software? We have implemented a new module which we call the Serial Communication Hub. It is a multiplexer for concurrent access to one serial port device. Modbus RTU is currently implemented, and that is already merged into main. We want to use this module mostly for Modbus, but it also provides raw access for driver modules like Modbus power meters, installation monitoring, and stuff like that. Next slide. There was quite a big refactoring on our authorization process. We also have a new module for that. Until now, there was a JavaScript module that was just taking or like handling tokens that could come from different token providers and validate them against different validators. It's still the same principle, but now we are a little bit more flexible, and we support more flexible setups of connectors and RFID readers, for example, from now on, you can have like one RFID reader for 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever amount of connectors, and this module is responsible for like forwarding the correct token to a connector that is available, and it triggers the EvseManager module so that it can use this authorization. And this supports like different selection algorithms, like which define where an authorization token will go to if it is not linked only to one connector but to several connectors. Somehow you have to decide, okay, which connector should use this token. And for that, we have like an algorithm that that is based on car plugins. So by that, it will derive to what kind of connect or to what connector a token should be sent to. But we can also link it up with a user interface so that you like swipe your card and then you have a display where you can type in what kind of connector your authorization is. So when you imagine big car parks or stuff like that, that might be pretty useful in the future. And so for now, we are really flexible with the new setup. All right, next slide is somehow related to it. We have also refactored the EvseManager and the OCPP modules. Of course, they also have been linked to this authorization process. So the OCPP module was doing some stuff regarding authorization because, of course, it's a provider and a validator. So it can there can be remote start transactions, and then you provide a token. But you, of course, you want to also validate tokens against the backend system. So like we had to make some adjustments there with the new authorization setup. That was the one thing, and the other thing was that we have split up the events that the session manager, the EvseManager sends into session events and transaction events. This is more into the direction of how OCPP defines it, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to connect the EvseManager module and the OCPP module so that we have more like similar events that are closer together. And for that we had to make some adjustments. And also so the OCPP module has a little bit less responsibilities right now because it's more like event driven. It listens to the events that the EvseManager sends. And we could also remove some code that was not really at the right place for the OCPP module. For example, firmware updates and log uploads. Of course, in OCPP you can trigger those, and those can still be triggered there. But we also had the handling for that inside the OCPP module, which is not where it should be. And for that, we also have another module which will come up on the next slides, I guess, which we call the system module. Oh, there it is already. So we transferred some of the operations like for log uploads and system uploads that are not really related only to one connector or one EvseManager, but like to the whole EVerest system or EVerest framework. And we want to use this module in the future to cover those kinds of operations that are not really linked to an EvseManager who had a lot of, or who still has a lot of responsibilities inside EVerest. But of course, it is always linked to one connector. And for this, we have this system module in the future. Right now, we support log uploads, firmware updates, and the setting of the system time. But you can imagine that there will be some more interesting operations in the future as well. Yeah, next slide, Marco. We already presented that in the last TSCs, I guess. Right now we are pretty close to open sourcing the OCPP testing tool that we have. We used it to test our own implementation of OCPP, implemented all the test cases from the OCA testing tool for the compliance tool, and also implemented own test cases. Yeah, we used it to test the EVerest OCPP implementation, but you can also use it with your own OCPP 1.6J client implementation. Should be pretty easy to integrate your own simulation toolchain there, and we will open source that soon. I think the last part or the last thing that is new is some documentation and Doc Toolchain we have worked on. So with all the type support that we merged the last weeks, we had the opportunity to like work a little bit on the documentation. So it could be pretty helpful to have automated creation of documentation for the manifest files, interfaces, and the types we have. And those will also be linked and published on the GitHub pages in the future. Right now, when you want to look for types and interfaces and stuff like that, you have to look inside the JSON files or also in the manifest files. And it can be pretty useful, or yeah, you're faster when you can use like decent documentation for that. And we have it already in the right format to create some documentation out of it. So you can click between your types, see what types are used in the interfaces. And that will speed up things also on our side. It will give a nice overview for like the types and the interfaces and manifests we have. And what will come up in the future will be documentation for the modules itself. So yeah, documentation in the root folder. And there's also like a bigger documentation generation project coming up in October. Right now, there's not, so we have all the tools available, but the documentation is not on main yet. But this will come up soon as well. People are working on it already.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. So what's next? This slide also hasn't changed since last time. We're still working on integrating a lot of different things until end of the year. So we have, by the end of the year, a decent DC charger running and decent AC chargers running. But all these priorities, by the end of the day, depending on community priorities, will change soon anyway, because soon there's some new company onboarding, and there are a couple of them in the background. This will be adjusted to whatever the community needs. So looking forward to your feedback. Next TSC, talking about feedback, will be 27th of October. So if you want to sign up, just register our email mailing list. You can also ask technical questions there. And you can also go on our, basically every Tuesday's tech meeting. We do that publicly, so feel free to join. Also, the invite data, meeting data is in this mailing list. Yeah, and looking forward to discuss with you. What are you doing? And I will stop the recording now so everyone can speak up who has some interesting ideas to